good to be here. It's good to be anywhere. This is my third time here, so it's getting a bit like Groundhog Day. But you know, I love talking about myself, so why not? You know, it's something to do on a Thursday night.
So I will take questions. We'll start in the back.
Right here.
There you go, the very back right there. Yes.
First of all, amazing honor to be in the same room.
Cheers. You too.
Beautiful film, by the way, very well documented. One question that did come up while I was watching the movie was what really kept you pushing past all the doubt? You know, that seemed to be so endless. Like, what was one of those like motivating factors that kind of kept you?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know? No, you know, I mean, I have to really sort of be sincere about it, and I think certainly in the book that the film was based on, I mean, the central message that I was trying to get across in the book was that certain amount of faith and belief in playing the guitar or playing an instrument or being devoted to music. That ultimately that's what I lived for, and I never really gave up my belief in that. And through the difficult periods that I went through prior to the police, let's say, not that that was difficult, that's what kept me going. You know, and it's a hard thing to do because there were times when it was getting a bit thin. But anyway, that's my particular history. But it really was just that belief that, you know, one day I would get there. That, you know, and probably a certain amount of arrogance that I thought I was better than other people at it, and so on and so forth. But life doesn't always give you the rewards at the moment you expect them, which is sort of almost immediately. So I had to keep the faith for a long time before I really broke through. But I always had it. So really, that's the sincere answer to that, sir. Thank you.
Right there.
Oh, thank you. As a fellow CSUN alum, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your time at Cal State.
Sounds like a disease. Yeah.
And your time at Cal State Northridge and Devonshire Downs at the time, all the music scene out there.
Well, that was the period that was a difficult time for me. I'd come to Los Angeles pretty early on in my life, and basically was down and out for most of the time I was here. You know, I started off all right. I was in a band called The Animals, which was world famous. Yeah, that was all right. It was a very heady time. Then I sort of disappeared into the wilderness, and I ended up going to Northridge for about 3 or 4 years and studying music seriously, because which was weird, you know, because really I should have gone straight back to London and got back into the scene, and that's who I am. My musical curiosity and going to study music formally was why I stayed, and I basically starved throughout the whole period. Very tough time, and I knew that it was ridiculous for me. Anyway, it all worked out in the end, but when I went there I was playing classical guitar, and I was practicing like 10 hours a day. So, you know, if you want to think about it in the sort of biblical sense, this was my sort of 5 years in the desert, and literally, and, you know, my head was down, becoming the best possible musician that I could be. And that was when, you know, I had to keep the faith, and, you know, sort of felt like I was somehow, a very important period of my life, I was not just going for the obvious, but, you know, I was studying music in depth, and that's what I wanted to do, and I did it. And it was tough until finally, you know, I got out of that and went back to the UK, and basically the rest is history, and that's why I'm at the Lemley Theatre tonight. See?
Right there.
Yes, I was going to ask you about your earliest influences in the reggae and ska.
There weren't any for me. I mean, a lot of people early on, it was sort of a bit irritating, and I would like to sort of talk about that a little bit, because, you know, some people, oh, well, they're a reggae band. Jesus, that's a real misreading of who the Police are. The Police is a genre on its own. We took elements from that, which is a much more intelligent thing to do, and used them to our own ends. If you want to hear like a white reggae band, it would be someone like UB40 or someone like that, but certainly wasn't the Police. And to
Who did you like as growing up?
who do I like? Well, obviously Bob Marley. You know, I mean, I liked a lot of them. You know, but I was never a reggae freak. No, I liked it. You know, like you like a lot of music. I like Bob Marley, of course, Toots the Maytals, Peter Tosh. Most of them are very good. You know, Bob Marley being the king of it, I think clearly was the greatest. But you know, I mean, I got into that a little bit. Jimmy Cliff, some of those people, and it was interesting in London in the very late 70s that one thing the punk scene would accept outside of pure straight ahead punk was reggae. There was room for it in London. So I don't know if it was a kind of flag of convenience for us to have a little bit of reggae in our sound, but we certainly never thought about it. I think what it started off as was the convenience of the bass line for Sting, because there was less notes in it, being this kind of reggae rhythm, and easier for him to sing again and play an independent bass line, which he's very good at.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
How about there? Yes.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the part in the movie where you guys met up with John Belushi.
Yeah.
Any other really funny stories about other celebrities that you hung out with in your early days?
Well, most of that would be, you know, kind of a blur. You know.
Handshakes and stuff?
Well, you know, at the time with Belushi was great, and we met in Bali of all places, and you know, as you can see from the film, we were partaking of the magic mushroom, which was completely legal in those days in Bali. So we didn't break the law, actually. And, you know, Chad had an amazing time, you know, and as you might imagine, it was totally psychedelic. But we sort of stayed friends after that, and there were a few more, like, crazed nights with him. But a wonderful guy. And, yeah, back at that period, of course, I mean, it was just, you know, as we sort of rose to the absolute heights, it was a completely celebrity-fueled everywhere we went, you know, particularly in LA and New York, places like that. So we were around it a lot, you know. But John Belushi was a standout.
Let's do this person right here in the front.
I saw you in Civic Theater, and I just had some good cocaine and stuff at the time. I was standing on the stage.
I remember you, yeah. I'm amazed you're standing now, yeah. Okay, cool.
And I remember you doing some fusion licks, stuff that I hadn't really heard. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You were just starting off with this stuff. And by the way, I've seen all the this is a brilliant documentary. The editing and everything is there. Is there a possibility of getting an I have my own magazine, okay? I'd like to, could I get an interview? Could I get a hold of you? Okay.
My people will talk to your people. Yeah.
By the way, but one other thing, photography. How did you do it all along or what? How did you get into photography?
Well, I sort of started into it, you know, with a very serious idea, you know, very early days of the Police. Because I could see, you know, for the next several years, this was going to be the life. We were never going to be out of hotels or cities, particularly in the US. And, you know, I had to sort of turn myself to something other than being in the band with all this time. So I did take up photography with a sort of a serious intent. You know, I worked at it, and but I seemed to have a natural aptitude for it, at least I hope I did. And so I became a kind of photography fanatic for, you know, still am actually.
I'm a filmmaker. The subjective camera stuff here was brilliant. Whoever did that and did the editing was very brilliant.
Well, it's the editor and the director is Andy Grieve.
Brilliant.
He's brilliant. He's probably one of the, if not the best editor in the country now.
I've seen everything. I don't mean to brag. That's the best I've ever seen. Best rock video.
Great.
Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you very much. Cheers, man. Yeah, it's good.
Let's go over here and then we'll go back up.
I read the book when it first came out, and I like how the film, the book is a template for the film as far as, you know, your point of view is, you know, the biggest gig that you've ever played, but then you replaced it with, you know, your Dodger Stadium, Rio, MSG, and but like the reunion was kind of like the poster of your book, and I like how I was wondering. I know that you, through the book, that you had your own, closure with it. But then with, actually living the closure, closing the loop, what is, now that I see the footage, like, also too that you have, nobody really has that,
Yeah, what was the question?
what scenes do you think you're there, like it brings you back, all the way back to like,
Being on that tour?
Yeah.
Well, most of it, actually, I mean,
Or like your old days, like your, MTV, and, are you, like the smells, we have the soundtrack of your, what do you think?
yeah, I'm not sure really what you want me to say. I mean, I mean, the cathartic experience for this with me, I mean, I don't get too emotional about it all anymore. Sorry. Kleenex. It is there in the film, I suppose. I mean, I think I'm sort of looking at it more from a kind of slightly technical point of view, and what's missing, all the other bits that are in the book, and all that. We must have another 8 hours of stuff that made the film. Particularly when I was writing the book, and I had to sort of confront the whole police story eventually, which I didn't even want to do. It was difficult to. I had to sort of put myself into a sort of cathartic state, sort of sobbing and typing at the same time. It's difficult. And I would do that by, putting on live records and listening to the tracks and, trying to be back in that moment. Sort of like an actor, sort of a sense memory kind of thing to, like, kind of go back to the, in a way, a certain amount of grief about not being in it anymore, possibly. Which I don't feel like... But, no, really, I don't know. No, it's important, you have to get into these things, and it was an aid to writing the book, but really the music more than anything else. I don't think I feel like that. I think there are moments in the film, particularly when we're backstage that are a little tight, tense, that I go, oh yeah, that's right, that was where it was. More like that. So.
I'm going to gamble in the front row one more time over here.
Yeah.
Two-part question.
Two-part question, all right.
My first part is, as a guitar player, I encounter so many people who love your style, and it's one of the discussions I've had with other guitar players, like, they would anticipate the next Police record, and like, we always wondered if the parts that you composed on the guitar, if it was a labor of love, if there was like stress with it, like trying to beat out what you did before, and like how people are going to perceive it. That's the first question. And the second question is, how did it feel the first time you heard such a respected and good guitar player like Alex Lifeson copy your style?
Well, that's very flattering. I heard that about Alex Lifeson, and he's a great guitar player. And I was never a Rush fan, actually, to be honest with you, because I never really heard them until I saw that movie that they made. Then I just thought they were terrific. I really liked them, And that's a great story, the Rush story. They're great players. Great. He's a very good guitar player. So it's very flattering. But I think one thing about the Police was, we sort of really emerged in the US first before the UK, and our look and our style, our very pared down, tight sort of style, threw a lot of bands for a loop. Certainly the corporate rock bands and that, and a lot of people changed their style. We were very imitated, and wouldn't use the word it was upsetting for a lot of bands, but I heard that Rush completely changed their style at the time. It's sort of hilarious, actually, because I think they've gone back to it. But we had that effect, sort of galvanizing effect. It was the new wave, and that's what everybody wanted to be on, rather than be previous to that and be dated. It was like the fresh wind blowing through the corridors or whatever. And then the guitar parts. No, they're all very organic. The magical thing is that we all met, and so I had all that stuff inside me, and I was working with Sting, who had the ears for it, so it all came about naturally. It wasn't like it was not. We weren't without talent. It was like I didn't have to struggle for the parts. You know, it came fairly naturally, I would say, to be honest.
Okay,
After a lifetime of work.
Let's go back up top. The white shirt up there.
Yeah, great. Hi, thank you. I love the film. And I'm just piggybacking off what you just said about coming into the U.S. and, you know, being edgy and all. How did you feel with mediums like MTV that really sort of catapulted music to a whole other level? I feel now with social media and the way music is exposed, how do you feel? Do you feel that's an advantage or disadvantage?
Well, it's interesting, you know, MTV. Oh dear. What happens to me? Because MTV, you know, obviously became a very powerful thing. I don't think it catapulted music to another level. I think it catapulted the promotion of music to another level, possibly, to the generation that grew up with it. But there's a slightly controversial thing with it, is that, you know, before that we were all musicians and we make tracks. That's what you did. And then with MTV, there's this sort of question is, well, actually the video is better than the song. It's more creative. The directors are more creative talent than the musicians. And so the sort of idea of songs and music got slightly turned on its head, you know, and the videos became amazing. You know, very great artistic endeavors sometime that really promoted very fluffy pieces of pop music. So I think there's a bit of a conundrum with that. Anyway, that era has passed, as we all know, and now it's social media, which in a way, if you like, is, I don't know, difficult one to confront. It's the new, I can't even say it's the new MTV, it's not, it's just the way music is delivered and the way people hear it now. And it's interesting because it's almost kind of evolutionary, the way people get music now. And in some ways it's just sort of the great leveler. I mean, you know, obviously I come from an era when, you know, we went to the record store and had incredible fun searching through great racks of vinyl albums. And it was like going into the magic cave and searching for the treasures. Now it's delivered to you on your laptop, so it's very different. I don't know if it's better or if people enjoy that more. It doesn't seem like as much fun to me, but here we are, and one has to embrace it.
Make sure to like ASMR's music.
I have social media.
Green blue shirt up there.
I really enjoyed the film a lot, and I thought it was a very accurate portrayal of the sort of both sides of the rock and roll life. The one thing I wish I'd seen more of, I think the band broke up for different reasons, but it's not being creative. I wish I'd seen more of what your creativity brought you in the years after the Police, before the reunion. Did you have much thought about what you wanted to portray about your life after the Police? Well,
it's a whole other story. I mean, yeah, I mean, the book is my life as a musician up to and including the Police until the band breaks up. And of course, since then, I got really active and got into, personally, I think my very best creativity. I made many, many albums and, you know, toured the world non-stop ever since. But, you know, I mean, there are documents about it, but I haven't, like, made a movie about all that, you know, but if you've got any money, we could make it. I'm up for it.
Very far back, green shirt.
Just going back to what you said about being in LA when you were, like, hungry and after, like, the animals, and you said you would do anything just to stay in LA, and you said that your music kind of kept you going and your belief in what you were doing. But did you ever get moments where, like, you were literally terrified and thought, shit, I need to go home, like back to the UK, and if you did, like, what would you do to stay?
I think I got that. It's a bit difficult to hear you. I mean, you're talking about...
Did you ever get to the bottom and think, oh shit, I gotta go home when you were young?
Yeah, I did. I mean, mostly it was absolute despair, you know, the blues. No, I had that period in LA in that very early in life, and you know, I was completely obsessed with music and playing. So, you know, I mean, I did have another life apart from that. And actually, I had a lot of friends. I sort of lived another life here, but I knew that it wasn't enough for who I thought I was. And eventually, you know, I did go back to England because it was what I knew. And it's difficult to talk about. I just felt that there was something inside me that hadn't been realised. And I'd, you know, been to college and studied all music, but hadn't really got to something that I really wanted to get to, you know. And I felt like I'd used up all my stuff in Los Angeles at that particular time. Yeah, there were a lot of periods of, I don't say depressed. I'm not a really depressive person, but you know, like, oh, this is a waste of time. I've got to get out of here and got to get out and embrace. I think I had my head down for at least 4 years, and I needed to kind of get up again and get back into the scene or the world, as it were. You know, I think a lot of people go through this, and you know, I sort of turned inward, if you like, at a fairly young age, and then came back out of it and went back out and started to really have a good time again. Of course, it led fairly quickly to me meeting Stewart. But I think this is a question I answered earlier. It was a question of, you know, just hanging on to the belief, really. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that really worked. A lot of questions. Right there. Yes, you.
I was just curious, are any of your kids in the music biz? And if not, is that due to any suggestion from you?
Well, it would be a very sort of subliminal suggestion. You know, all my kids are musically talented. They all played instruments, but you know, I don't know if it's because of the size of the career that I had, but none of them wanted to, you know, go pro, if you like. They didn't want to do it. But I will add that one of the great pleasures of that reunion tour for me was the fact that, you know, I blathered on for years to my kids as they were growing up about, yeah, I used to be in this band. Oh, God. And then finally, of course, it happened, and they came out and saw, you know, these massive audiences, and there we were rocking away. And so it was brilliant for me. That was one of the real great pleasures of that tour, that, you know, my kids actually came, of course, to many shows and got the whole deal. So there you go. But they haven't taken it up professionally yet. Yeah.
Okay, we just have a couple more questions. Gentleman right there, white shirt, sort of middle. You.
Okay. I thought, having grown up in the MTV generation, didn't really know about the depth of the stuff that you did in the 60s. And when I read your autobiography, it just blew me away. How do you feel about when people come up talk about, you had a 4-minute guitar solo on the Love Is album with the Animals, and say a lot of people at the time was hailing that as one of the best guitar solos ever. How do you?
Well, I think they're right. Yeah.
Nowadays really know about it, and I just wish more people had the opportunity to listen to it. How does it make you feel when some 50 years down the line people come and say, yeah, that is one?
Let's talk about the 1800s. The Civil War, my part in it. You know. No, I'm not that fucking old. Well, you know, I was glad that you are paying attention. You know.